So today we're going to talk about metaphysics and spirituality and what the heck they have to do with each other. So a couple of definitions for you first. So metaphysics is the search for answers. The search for saying is what is real, what is not real, what does it mean to actually be? It's also the study of the science of being. Now, in terms of what everything means, that's always up for interpretation, right? Always. So when we talk something about metaphysics, there's not just one interpretation ever, right? It all has to do with how we are in the moment and what we're recognizing and maybe even what's going on around us at the time. Spirituality is our recognition of feeling or sense of belief that there is something greater than ourselves. Right? There is something more to experience. There's something more than just what we do every day, right? Everything we touch, everything we see, everything we hear. There's more than that. That's what spirituality is saying to us. And that there's more than just this natural world and cosmos around us. So metaphysics is that drive to know what is real. When you pair that with your spirituality, it's what is real in the sense of that connection to all that is. A couple things to just keep in mind as we have this conversation, and that there's lots of experiences of what is true and what isn't true. Right? So in order to talk about that, there's absolute truths, and there's very few of them. We like to think there's a lot of absolute truths, but there's really, really very few. And that's something that never changes, which means our divine ideas, some people call them divine laws, some people call them divine principles. We can use those words interchangeably. Those things don't change. So which means unconditional love is unconditional love. Your connection is your connection. You are 100% spirit all the time. That's the absolute truth. Your relative truth changes. That's your choices, your perceptions, your internal experience, what you're responsible for your reactions, your choices, and healing. Basically, it's your human experience. So your relative truth is everything else, always. Somebody's not happy. Our spiritual or our universal principle is, again, that's what we call the absolute. But life is not absolute. Our life here, it's an expression in being. So as we're moving forward, trying to figure out what being even is, we have to recognize both that all that is and our humanness. We can't just separate them out and say one is better than the other, or I'm just going to look at one or look at the other. Our universal principle is, in this moment, the way we are now is that you are human and you are divine. And this quote that's up here is from Charles Fillmore, saying that life is an expression, is an activity, that our human beingness is an idea, right? That it's a divine idea, but it's also a human expression. When we're looking at universal or spiritual principles, and again, the word law gets thrown in there a lot too. So pick which one you resonate most with. We're recognizing that we're moving from this great, whatever it is out here, very abstract. I don't know that we can ever get our hands totally on it at any time. That's the formless. And then when Christian comes, he talks a lot in those verbiages, the formless and the formed, right? The formless is that all that is. It's that energy of creation that fills us all up, that is here all the time. And you, in this present moment, are the form. Our life is the form. In our divine order, we don't assume that all manifestation is good, but we understand that the idea is good. So our divine mind, the divine idea that sprung all of us into action, is good. Our humanity gets to choose what to do with that. Right? So that's the principle of our divine order. Humankind has put the limitations of negative thought upon that divine thought. So if we're talking about combining that with the principle expression, it means that we as the form are determining how to use that divine order. And where consciousness is primary in soul unfoldment, there is confusion because of lack of understanding of mind action. We are the manifestations of that divine idea, and yet we get to choose how we use it. Big concepts, really big concepts. And yet that's what we're trying to figure out when we say that we're looking at something from a metaphysical aspect. We're trying to figure out how our spirituality fits into everything, right? Or how what we perceive in the world is even fitting into our own sense of being. There are a ridiculous amount of principles for beingness. Now, these are all from Charles Fillmore in his writings, right? And I know those of you that are used to unity know about the 12 principles, and those are talked about a lot, right? But there are a lot more than 12 that are talked about in the text. And all of these are ways in which we recognize that divine spark flowing through us at any given time. So our beingness, if you take any one of these words, joy, judgment, abundance, beauty, how is our beingness, how is our life interpreting those things at this time? Those are all divine principles. If we're talking about the principle of all principles, we're talking about the divine idea of all ideas. Notice that the word unconditional love is not in there, because all of this is unconditional love. There are aspects of unconditional love. Unconditional love is an unfathomable big term. It's like, what is that really? What does that really, really mean? And this is what it means. All of these principles, all of these aspects are pieces of that unconditional love that we as beings on this planet are exploring, so that the rest of the creation can understand through our viewpoint. We each get a unique viewpoint. We each get unique choices to recognize or not recognize these principles at any given time. Now, earlier today in our meditation, we talked about gratitude, right? We talked about trust. Those are just two ways. And if we think about, I know we always talk about, well, what are we here to begin with for, right? What's even the purpose of traveling around on this planet? And we say it's to share love, or to understand, or to learn, or to grow. I don't know, but my joke has been for years, and it started off as a joke, but I think I feel it more and more, that there's more words than even these that we can have, right? In the recognition of unconditional love. And somewhere in us is that expression that we're fully trying to get a hold of. Now, my joke has been, I'm here for patience, right? To learn it really well. And I can trace through my entire life how my patience has had to readjust itself and trying to figure things out. I know I started off as a joke with that, but I think in some version, we are all doing that, right? And maybe we're doing it at different times. Maybe your soul is just not one part of that, right? But at any moment of any day, we can recognize any part of that unconditional love. It's just, what word are you putting on it? Are you recognizing the lack of it or the fullness of it? Or maybe what you can do and be to bring it into more existence and understanding, not just for yourself, but for others. This is a little precursor for the next couple of weeks. If you look at your sheet on the back, it'll tell you that we're going to talk about integral Christianity for the next couple of weeks. And for that, since we're talking about spirituality this week, we need some definitions to carry us forward. So in recognizing and in searching through that word metaphysics for our spirituality, we recognize that spirituality can be developed, right? It's something that we recognize it's in us and that it can be developed. And we can move in our state of consciousness with that, which means all of those words we can recognize in fuller and fuller and fuller understanding. And spirituality is an attitude. I love that one. It's an attitude. What kind of attitude are we going to have when we are interacting in our world? Are we going to recognize that we are that 100% spiritual being and 100% human? And at which given time do we recognize it? And I love that Ken Wilber talks about the perspectives and the persons, that you are that divine presence. Are you talking as God? Are you talking to God? Are you talking about God? Are you talking as spirit, to spirit, or about spirit? And we can do all of those. And it's recognizing that all of those are okay, depending on what's happening with us and the people around us at any given time. Because if we go back to the Christian text, Jesus did all three, right? And you are that Christ light just as much as Jesus did as he walked the planet. And how often do we allow ourselves to get to that first person and to recognize these words from that first person perspective? The I am abundance, and I am wholeness, and I am health and beauty. Not just please make sure I get it, right? Please help me understand is great. But to recognize that we are these things and can have that I am perspective with all of it. Our goodness, our truth, our beauty, the beauty of all creation is being breathed through the recognition of opposites. So our humanity offers that opposite perspective so that we can even understand it to begin with. Meaning, the opposite of joy. Maybe that's depression, right? Or maybe that's moving into grieving. And yet, in those moments, it's when we find the beingness. Right? Without our humanity, the universe wouldn't be able to figure itself out and find out what that unconditional love even means. Our personal relationship with the intelligence of the universe and the creator of all. That relationship shines through the fullness of love and beauty and recognition of this human experience, what we call life. We are agents of that life. We are agents of spirit and of divine. We become aware and align talent and place. We have a better understanding of the moment and our place in the moment, and how our choices bring about the next moment, and whether to add to this moment with goodness, truth, and beauty, whether to add to this moment with love. On your sheets is a quote from, there's a couple different quotes. One is from Douglas Adams, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. He says, I don't know what I'm looking for. He says, why not? Because I think it might be because if I knew, I wouldn't be able to look for them. So it's to realize that you can find them, right? And we just listed a bunch of ways. The quote by Jason Michael Ratcliffe. The question of ponderance has been, am I the creator or is God the creator? How about God and I am one creator together with no disconnect whatsoever? To say that I am God may sound controversial to some, but I am not God that rules over others. I am God that rules over my own being. As one with God, I have the gift to control how I am. However I am being is all of my own doing. I choose to be happy, sad, angry, or at peace. Whatever state of being I am determines the state of conditions that I attract. So if I elevate my state of being to one of acceptance and allowance, I will be at peace with whatever that occurs. I will be able to control the circumstances around me. Control? No. But influence? Yes. All that resonate with my being, I shall attract, thus expanding the circle of those with peaceful intentions. All of those with like thoughts would come together. The entire circle of peace is a connection of oneness. And when united are the intentions of peace, the force of good shall rule the land. But when I say rule, it is not the ruling that forces against one's own free will. It is the ruling that the natural soul yearns for every being, to be at peace with one another.